The sun had just begun to rise when the calm of my new neighborhood was broken by an unexpected knock on my door. It was exactly 8 a.m. on a Saturday, a moment I had planned to spend unpacking boxes and getting settled in my new house. Standing outside was a middle-aged woman with a carefully styled blonde bob full of bright highlights. The type that practically announces, "I need to speak to the manager," holding a clipboard tightly against her chest. She looked me up and down with narrowed eyes. "You don't belong here," she said, her voice filled with unearned authority. "This is a respectable neighborhood with standards. I need to see proof that you own this property right now." Still half asleep and confused, I managed to ask, "Excuse me, who are you?" "I'm Karen Wilson, president of the Meadowbrook Estates Homeowners Association," she replied, stressing every word as if she were declaring nobility. "And you are obviously far too young to own a home in this development. Our covenants are very strict about preserving the character of our community." I started to explain that I had moved in the week before, but she cut me off instantly. "Save it. I've already filed the eviction paperwork. You have 30 days to leave the property before legal action begins." She shoved a sheet of paper toward me. "Consider this your official notice." As I stood there holding the paper, my hand slightly shaking, I struggled to believe what had just happened. What Karen didn't realize was that I not only legally owned this house, but I had also purchased it entirely with cash. Her accusations weren't just irritating. They could easily cross into criminal territory. My name is Jason, and at 26 years old, I had just accomplished what many people thought was impossible, buying my first house completely debt-free. It hadn't been simple. After finishing college, I lived with my parents for 4 years while working remotely as a software developer. I saved nearly everything I earned, invested carefully, and lived far below my means. When a modest 3-bedroom in Meadowbrook Estates appeared on the market at a surprisingly affordable price because of some outdated interior features, I immediately jumped on the opportunity. The previous owner was an elderly man who had moved into assisted living, and his family wanted a fast, uncomplicated sale. My all-cash offer was exactly what they were looking for. No financing delays, no waiting on loan approvals, just a simple and direct deal. Within 30 days, I had the keys and a clear deed under my name. But instead of friendly welcomes from my neighbors, I received suspicious looks and quiet whispers. Karen, it seemed, had appointed herself the unofficial gatekeeper of the neighborhood, and a single man in his 20s didn't match her idea of the perfect Meadowbrook resident. From the moment the moving truck pulled up, I noticed her standing across the street watching, taking pictures with her phone, and shaking her head with disapproval. I tried to ignore it. After all, I had more important things to deal with, like tearing down the floral wallpaper in the kitchen and replacing the avocado green bathroom fixtures. I assumed Karen would eventually adjust to having me around once she realized I was a quiet, responsible homeowner who mostly kept to myself. I was wrong. The passive-aggressive behavior started just 3 days after I moved in. First came the notes printed on official-looking HOA letterhead claiming my garbage cans were visible from the street. They weren't, and my lawn supposedly needed urgent care. It had been mowed the day before. Then came the constantive buys. Karen's load her white SUV almost to a stop whenever she passed my house, photographing every supposed violation. "Your holiday decorations must be approved by the committee," one note said, even though I hadn't put up any decorations. "Parking on the street overnight is prohibited," another claimed, despite the fact that my car was sitting inside my garage. The situation got worse when Karen began telling other neighbors that I must be running some kind of illegal operation. How else could someone my age afford a house like this? I overheard her telling an elderly couple walking their dog past my driveway, "He's probably selling drugs or running a gambling ring." I've contacted the authorities to look into it. 2 weeks after her first visit, a manila envelope showed up in my mailbox. Inside was an official notice of non-compliance stating I was violating HOA bylaws related to minimum age requirements for homeowners. According to the document, Meadowbrook Estates had a 55+ restriction, and I was required to leave the property within 30 days or face legal consequences. It was completely ridiculous. I had read all the HOA documents before purchasing the house, and there was no age restriction anywhere. Meadowbrook was a normal suburban neighborhood, not a retirement community. I immediately called my real estate attorney, who confirmed exactly what I suspected. Karen is inventing rules, he said. Document everything. If she's filing false complaints, that's harassment and possibly fraud. That evening, I installed security cameras around my property. If Karen wanted to start a fight, she was going to discover that I was ready. The final straw came 3 days later when Karen walked up to my door with 2 other HOA board members behind her. I recognized one as my neighbor from 2 houses down, who at least looked uncomfortable about being there. "We're here for a compliance inspection," Karen declared, trying to step past me and into my foyer. I shifted forward and blocked the doorway. "You'll need to schedule an appointment and bring proper authorization for that." Karen's face turned red. "As HOA president, I have every right." "You have the right to enforce actual bylaws through proper channels," I replied, keeping my voice calm but firm. "What you don't have is the right to enter my private property without permission or invent rules that don't exist." I pulled out my phone and opened a PDF. "I have the complete HOA covenant right here. Please show me where it says there's an age restriction for homeowners." The neighbor from 2 houses down suddenly looked at Karen with suspicion. "I've lived here for 15 years, Karen. There's no age restriction." Karen's nostrils flared. "New amendment passed last month. Amendments require a 2/3 majority vote from all homeowners," I responded. "I never received any ballot or notification about that vote." I looked at the other board members. "Did either of you?" Their awkward silence answered the question. "Now, I'd like all of you to leave my property. Any future communication should be in writing and based on actual HOA regulations." I raised my phone. "And just so you know, this entire interaction has been recorded, both audio and video." Karen's expression twisted with anger, but she backed away, practically dragging her confused companions down my walkway. As they walked off, I heard her whisper sharply, "This isn't over." She was right about that, but not in the way she thought. The following morning, I discovered an official county eviction notice taped to my door. My heart pounded until I looked closer and called the county clerk's office. The document turned out to be completely fake, filed under Karen's name with forged credentials claiming she had legal authority to remove residents. The clerk sounded extremely concerned and transferred me directly to the county prosecutor's office. This had moved far beyond a simple neighbor dispute. Karen had crossed into criminal territory, and I had no intention of ignoring it. I gathered every piece of evidence I had. The fake HOA violation notices, the security camera footage showing Karen trespassing on my property, the forged eviction notice, and emails from other neighbors who had experienced similar harassment. The prosecutor seemed especially interested in the counterfeit county documents. "Impersonating a public official and filing fraudulent legal paperwork are serious crimes," she explained. "We take this very seriously." Within a few days, a full investigation began. What they discovered shocked even me. Karen had been operating the HOA like it was her personal property for years, creating fake rules, issuing unauthorized fines, and even using HOA funds to cover personal expenses. Board meetings rarely happened, minutes were falsified, and several homeowners had been intimidated into compliance through the same threats of eviction. Police eventually obtained a warrant to search Karen's home office. Inside, they found folders on nearly every resident in the neighborhood, filled with personal information she had no legal right to possess, along with templates used to produce fake legal notices. Her computer also contained evidence that she had forged the signatures of other board members and created fraudulent financial statements to hide her misuse of HOA funds. 2 weeks after I first contacted the county, I was working from home when I heard a commotion outside. I looked through my window and saw 2 police officers escorting Karen from the HOA office in handcuffs. Her face was full of outrage as neighbors stepped outside to watch. "This is ridiculous," she shouted loudly enough for the entire street to hear. "I was protecting this neighborhood from outsiders and freeloaders. Just wait until property values drop because you let anyone move in." No one spoke up for her, Instead, there was only silence as officers placed her in the back of the patrol car. Then, from a few porches, the sound of applause began to spread down the street. The final HOA meeting I attended was nothing like the confrontation I had expected. Instead, several neighbors greeted me warmly and even apologized for not standing up to Karen earlier. The interim board president, a retired judge who lived at the end of my street, asked if I would consider joining the board to help rewrite the bylaws and prevent something like this from ever happening again. We could use someone with your attention to detail and knowledge of the actual regulations, he said with a friendly smile. As the meeting ended, the judge quietly pulled me aside. "You know, there's something almost poetic about this situation," he said. "That house you bought, Karen actually tried to purchase it 5 years ago, but her mortgage application was denied. She never really got over it." I stood there stunned as everything suddenly made sense. The woman who had tried so hard to drive me out had been motivated by jealousy over the one thing she couldn't have, the house I now called home. Karen was eventually sentenced to 18 months in prison for fraud and embezzlement, along with an additional $50,000 in restitution owed to the HOA. When the sentence was read aloud, her perfectly controlled image finally shattered. "This is ridiculous," she screamed in the courtroom. "I was just enforcing standards. This entire community will fall apart without me." The judge calmly added a contempt of court charge as officers escorted her out, still shouting that she was the real victim. And just like that, the self-appointed ruler of Meadowbrook Estates was finally gone. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unbelievable real-life stories like this. Thanks for watching.